Hello, I'm Phoenix Alexander, and I'm certified food healing practitioner from the Conquering Any Disease System from Jeff Primack. And I thought today for our session, instead of just sitting behind a Zoom camera, I would take you through a day of the life in a food healing practitioner. So we start the day with a morning tonic, which helps our whole body. But I'll talk to you a little bit about each of the components that we'll be putting into our drink. We use distilled water. And the reason we use distilled water is that it has all of the minerals distilled out of it. And so rather than depriving your body of minerals, it actually takes the minerals that are not dissolvable or available in your body and that are stuck in your tissues and your bloodstream and pulls them out. People who have difficulty absorbing calcium will often, like myself, I've had 21 calcium kidney stones. And so I learned that the distilled water helps to pull the calcium deposits from your body and your bloodstream, which can clog your blood vessels. That's a big problem. So, distilled water, you should be drinking about 50% of your diet as distilled water to pull out the minerals and metals and that sort of thing that cannot be dissolved, that are not bioavailable. So you would heat up your cup of water because it allows the powders to dissolve more effectively. And the first thing that we would put in is our reishi, wild red reishi drops. So it's a concentrate. This has 2 times the potency of the mushroom itself. And the reason we put that in our morning tonic is that it helps to boost the immune system, boost killer T cells, which help attack invaders and viruses and bacteria and all that kind of thing. Very important part of our immune system, so it helps boost the killer T cells. But reishi perhaps is best known for its effect on the heart. It has natural adenosine, which is what they give people when they go to the hospital, adenosine, and they're having chest pain. So it's excellent for heart health and circulatory issues. So we put the reishi in. Mushrooms in general are really good for the immune system, and we'll be going through the different mushrooms later. Then maca powder. Maca grows in the Andes, and it's a staple food there. It grows very high elevation. And we use a gelatinized maca because maca can be a little bit difficult to digest if it's not gelatinized. So this also makes it more bioavailable. Maca is excellent for the endocrine system, and it helps to slow the metabolism or the breakdown of something called anandamide. Anandamide is the bliss molecule. It's also found in chocolate, and it helps us just feel good. And so by reducing the speed of absorption of anandamide, it helps with things like feeling blue, perhaps depression. So it's a major endocrine balancing substance, maca. It's also excellent for reproductive health. It helps with the formation and the motility of sperm, and it also just helps with overall general reproductive health. Then mucuna bean. We put some mucuna bean in, and it's quite a concentrated form. Mucuna bean is also known as the velvet bean, and it has a lot of melanin, so that's a black pigment. And we talked a little bit in the last session about how our brains have an area that's called the substantia nigra, and it stores the melanin pigment. So when our brains are low on melanin, they pull the pigment from our hair, and as we age we see that happening. But it's really important for brain health to get sources of melanin in the diet. So the 2 sources that I'm aware of are the mucuna bean and the black sesame. And then finally, You can add, although this is not in the book, in his morning tonic, paprika powder, which is part of the bell pepper family, and it has capsulrubin in it. And capsulrubin in a tea form has been found to be especially helpful in binding with cholesterol in the blood vessels. So it has extreme antioxidants in it that allow it to yield up electrons to neutralize free radicals. So that's going to help stop or slow the process of lipid peroxidation, which is hardening of the fats, the cholesterol in your arteries. So this is an important part of cholesterol health. So we don't, again, need to be extraordinarily alarmed about cholesterol in our diet. We just want to get enough antioxidants in our diet so that we can eat the foods that are healthy for us. Our body makes cholesterol naturally. And then we have the probiotic drops. Now I chose a drop that has 20 different probiotics in it, and it includes L-reuteri, which is found in all animals. Well, why do you want probiotics in your diet? They help with digestion. So in a healthy intestinal system, we have good bacteria and sometimes bad bacteria. And the bad bacteria can cause all kinds of problems with our digestion, which of course will affect our ability to absorb foods and nutrients. So we want to feed the healthy bacteria, the probiotics. So you're going to want to put some drops of the probiotics. And then I have to be open about this. This combination doesn't taste amazing. You can, it's palatable, you can drink it, but you can also add a tincture of cinnamon. Just one drop, just one drop. Cinnamon is known to have properties that mimic insulin. So it is really helpful in balancing the glucose, particularly if you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So if you're going to eat grains and you have type 2 diabetes, you're going to want to put some cinnamon in it. The other thing you can do is you could boil your distilled water with a couple of clove buds, and a cinnamon stick. And then you've got the antibacterial, antiviral properties of those two spices to offset the flavor a little bit. So let's go ahead and mix this up. So we would have about a quarter teaspoon of the mucuna. It's also known, it has L-dopa in it, which is a really important nutrient that we can put in our brains to help stop oxidation, and it is shown to be extremely effective in people who have Parkinson's. So even though I don't have Parkinson's, I still want my brain to be working for as long as I'm on the planet. And then we would put a half a teaspoon of maca in. Put a quarter teaspoon of the paprika in. This is, of course, organic paprika. And put the probiotics in. And our reishi. And then we'll mix it up and slam it. It's easier that way. So it's quite powdery. You're going to have a whisk of some kind to break up the powder, but it definitely helps to have the water a little bit warm. Again, you don't want to have it too warm to kill the probiotics. That would definitely not help so much. So there it is, morning tonic. You would drink this first thing in the morning. Cheers. Hi, I'm back after my food preparation. I'm going to share some of it with you. I didn't want to take you through the process of food preparation. It would just take too much time. But I want to start with dessert first. This is the instant gratification brownies, and I've taken pictures of the process that I will include on the video when it's edited. So we use cocoa powder in that, and I just want you to know about chocolate. It is absolutely fantastic, and I am a big fan, as you might have guessed. So raw cocoa has 5 to 10% of its dry weight in procyanidin, tannin, antioxidants. 5 to 10%, which makes it the highest phytochemical food of all time. So Jeff talks about it more as a tonic, that you don't eat it every day, although some people who have a lot of longevity to their life are big chocolate consumers. It does pull out metals, so if some of the beneficial nutrients like copper and zinc and that sort of thing. So if you're going to eat your brownies, maybe you do want to eat dessert first, or wait for a while after the consumption of your meal to allow your body to digest and obtain the nutrients before you add the chocolate into that mix. So it has a lot of procyanidin B2, 5 to 10 grams per 100 grams. So let me read you the studies. Cocoa tannins, that's the brown part, reduced lipase enzyme activity by over 50%. Larger size procyanidin tannins blocked more digestive enzyme activity than small ones, such as epicatechin. So it does have a lot of enzyme activity to it. And again, some people are sensitive to chocolate and they can't eat it all the time. So it has 75 milligrams per 100 grams of dark chocolate. That's the epicatechin. And this is exciting. When you think about chocolate, you might just think about amazingly delicious flavor, but you may or may not think about hair growth. Just making sure that my microphone is on. So hair growth mechanism of procyanidin B2 is from the inhibition of PKC in hair epithelial cells. That's a big word, epithelial. Epithelial is the outside covering. So epidermis are epithelial cells, that's our skin. It covers organs and it covers the inside of glands such as our bladder. And so it blocks oxidation of the epithelial cells, which often causes hair to fall out. So there are a lot of different causes for hair to fall out, but that's one of them. So as we eat our chocolate, we're helping our hair to stay healthy. And I like that. As time has gone on, I've lost a significant amount of hair. And I like to know that not only does it taste absolutely amazing, but I'm helping my hair growth. So another scientific study was procyanidins in cacao. That's the, oh, I don't have it here. I took a picture of it. Like the cocoa powder, were found to prevent lipid oxidation in the arteries. That's pretty important, since lipid oxidation, cardiovascular disease, is the #1 killer. So when the free radicals attack cholesterol or lipids, fats, they crystallize it and it blocks the arteries, and so that can be a killer. So cocoa will help you with that as well. It also has stearic acid. It is 18 carbons long, and it's high in red meat and chocolate. So if you're a vegetarian, you might want to eat more chocolate. Theobromine is the name of chocolate. Theo means God, so its nickname is food of the gods, theobromine. And it's an alkaloid, and it's more in the dark chocolate, like for sure the cocoa powder, than it is in the milk chocolate, which is loaded with sugars. So if you're going to eat chocolate, use it in your cocoa powder. You can put it in a smoothie, maybe throw some cherries in, or blackberries or blueberries, and you've got the benefits there. So it's a mind-altering alkaloid. So it also has anandamide, which is the bliss molecule that we talked about in maca in our morning tonic. And so it helps with our brain function, helping us to feel happier. And it was discovered in 1841 in cacao beans, the theobromine. So it has brain activating properties, and it's just kind of a satisfying, because of the chemicals in it, satisfying food. So I made my brownies, and then just to gild the lily, so to speak, or to add some more nutrients to that. So let's talk about what is in the brownies. So the brownies have a half a cup of butter, and as we talked about in our previous session, butter has butyric acid, and it's a saturated fat, and it's actually good for us. So butter is bad. Yes, it has some sugar. And Jeff talks about very little about sugar. He said sugar is not the enemy. The free radicals are the enemy. So if you have diabetes, then this is probably not your best bet. However, if you are on a weight loss program or a weight release program, if you made up the brownies like this and cut them into small portions, put them in little Ziploc bags and put them in your freezer. It is instant gratification. It takes a little bit of time for them to thaw enough for you to chew through it. So you've got that little delay with your craving, but it's very satisfying, and then you don't blow your program by, falling off the wagon and eating a whole bunch of brownies. If they're frozen in individual packages, chances are you'll have the self-control to eat one. They have eggs in them, and eggs, as we know, have carotenoids, lutein, which are really great for us. And although they have cholesterol, it's the most bioavailable protein. So eggs are good for us. And it has vanilla. I took a picture of it, but I'm a bit of a vanilla snob. When I traveled in Mexico, I learned about Mexican vanilla, and it is reputed to be the finest tasting vanilla in the world, and I concur. It is amazing. So I found that Amazon, now I hate to promote them all the time, but hey, they've made my life a lot easier. They had the vanilla that I was able to buy by the pint in Mexico, and I always made a lot of room in my suitcase for the weight of the vanilla that I brought back for myself and my family. And then it has flour, and if you wanted to make that more healthy, you could use oat flour, or you could use almond flour or raspberry flour. We talked a little bit about the raspberry flour. This might be it. Yes, this is the freeze-dried raspberry powder. You could add some of that. You wouldn't have to do the whole amount with it, but there's only a half a cup of flour. And then we use, of course, the unsweetened cocoa. And I use Hershey. So something about cocoa. I love Guittard chocolate, but I noticed that it has a remarkably different look to it. It's much lighter, which after my food healing studies, I realized that the darker the pigment, usually the more antioxidants it has in it. So I learned that Guittard, that brand, and something called Dutch processing. They use Dutch processing, which removes a lot of the beneficial antioxidants. So you want to go for the real dark colored cocoa, and I found Hershey's works just as well for me. So, and they do definitely have a different flavor to them with the Dutch process. So that's our brownies, and I'm going to show you, here we go. Here is cherries. These are, I found these at the health food store, and cherries are one of my absolute lifetime favorite foods. Love, love, love them. And I learned that the organic ones are really important to me. I hate to be an organic snob, but it matters. I found over the years I've had tremendous food allergies. When I was in high school, I had to literally bake everything I ate by scratch because I had only about 15 foods that I could eat without having a anaphylactic, throat shutting down, can't breathe, swollen up into my ears. Terrifying experience from almost all foods. So just about 15 I could eat without that happening. So I saw specialists who worked with people with food allergies, and they did homeopathics and all kinds of things to desensitize my very overactive immune system that was perceiving pretty much everything as a threat. So I'm going to go around this circle with you. what I learned is that some of the foods I couldn't eat at all. And so if I canned them, like cherries, I could eat them. If I had a fresh peach and I ate it, I would immediately have welts on my lips. I had the same thing with most all fruits. And I was talking to the specialist about that, the doctor, he was a naturopathic doctor. And he said, so you're either allergic to, if you can cook it and eat it and it doesn't cause anaphylaxis, you're either allergic to the pesticide on it or an enzyme. And it turns out that after finding organic things, because they're available now, I am allergic to the pesticides. So they're very toxic to me. And when I started using organic fruits and foods, I can eat them. Woohoo! So here's the tart cherries. These are organic and they're fabulous. So the tart cherries actually are higher in melanin. Cherries are very high in anthocyanins. Again, that is, we'll go more into anthocyanins in a subsequent session, but it is a water-soluble antioxidant that stays in your system for about 24 hours. And so its nickname is chrysanthemum, and it's got cyanidin. So cyanidin is also, it's a very dark pigment usually. Blueberries have a lot of cyanidin in them. In fact, that's the only anthocyanin that blueberries have. But cherries have a lighter one. The Bing cherries, the darker cherries, have a little bit more of the cyanin. And it has melatonin in it, which helps us sleep, and it's really important for our brain health. So it has 1,300 milligrams per 100 grams in cherries. 100 grams is a lot. And so melatonin is manufactured in our pineal gland, but the cherries have a lot more than we could just make on our own. So they had a study, a double-blind study, where volunteers consumed either a placebo or a tart cherry concentrate. So that's what this is. Okay, so Jeff says that he is really against most juices, but if you can't find the tart cherry, then a substitute would be the tart cherry juice. Make sure it's not loaded with sugar. All right, I'm back. I'm going to show you the hummus. I'm going to teach you how to make tahini, which is made from sesame seeds. You can make it from the white sesame seeds, which is what is traditionally done. But if you use black sesame seeds, you're going to get more of the melanin pigment to help your brain. So I'm running low on time now, having done the cooking and the explaining. So I'm going to come back and explain a lot of these things, but I do want to just show you how to make tahini, because when I went in to my local health food store and I can buy fresh ground tahini, but they use the wrong oils in it. So olive oil, we talked about olive oil being heart healthy, and so we're going to put some olive oil in. Notice that this is in a green jar. That helps to keep the oil from oxidizing, and this one is not, but I couldn't find any of this. And it was at the beginning of COVID when people were doing a run on foods. So I got the oil that I needed, and I keep it in a very dark place. There's no light in it. So that once I open this, I could vacuum pack that to help with the oxidation process. So it's mono unsaturated olive oil. This is part of a healthy Mediterranean diet. I don't know, you've heard the virtues of the Mediterranean diet. So we're going to put some oil in. It's not an exact science. And then we're going to put black sesames in. Now, it's going to make your garbanzo beans or your white beans look kind of grayish. So they're not going to be as visually appealing, but they're going to be so healthy for you. So just realize that the two kinds of sesame have different properties. So pour in some of that, and then you use a couple of tablespoons of this tahini in your hummus. So I'll go ahead. Now I could potentially make it in my blender, but I'm doing it here for speed. So I can do it in my food processor and then put the tahini in here, take it with me, and put it in my my lovely veggie tray. So I've got I managed to cut myself changing out the camera. So I have a Band-Aid on. It's a new addition. So we've got our black olives, which of course olives are part of the olive oil. They press those to get that. And I have Kalamata olives, which are soaked in red wine and olive oil and some herbs, which are amazing. Then I've got the red bell peppers. We talked about them having capsanthin in them, and 22 milligrams per 100 grams in the red bell pepper of carotenoids. Okay, so very antioxidant and free radical quenching. We've got carrots, which also have beta carotene, and that's another carotenoid. We have cucumbers, which are alkalizing. They have, around the skin, they're kind of waxy, and these are organic. That has ursolic acid, which is also around the skin of apples, red apples, any apples. And that's a steroidal property in it, and it's really good for you. Cucumbers are a really important part of the smoothie protocol. They're delicious. Now, sometimes peppers are difficult to digest in their raw state, so I will be making Primac pepper paste, and it is amazing. And then right here in the center, now I didn't peel my carrots because there are nutrients in, I cleaned them, I sprayed them with a vegetable wash, everything, and then I rinsed them. And sometimes they're a little bit hard to digest, and in the Primac pepper paste, when we don't eat them raw, we roast them and then take the peels off. So there's that. So I'm going to show you how to make the hummus for that. And then I love to have the little tea parties, and they make, you know, cucumber sandwiches and this and that. And so this is sourdough bread, which is much easier to digest. Now, most people are not actually allergic to wheat. Some people are, if they have celiac disease, or they can't have an intolerance to it. But there's a lot of people who've gotten on the bandwagon of no wheat. So if you're in that category, fine, ignore what I'm saying. But Jeff says that sourdough, because it's cultured and fermented, I picked this up in Alaska last year and look forward to making some sourdough starter. Because once you've got the culture, you can keep it going over and over. So it's very good to help with your digestion, and if you have digestive issues like irritable bowel or whatever. So it also has a much lower effect on the insulin spike, the glucose spike. So this is a good food, and because it has a different texture to it, the sourdough wouldn't cut into the pretty little shapes that I usually do for my tea sandwiches. This is something else that I'll be taking with me. It's Akmac. They are sesame crackers, and they have very few ingredients, but they have wheat, butter, sesame, salt, and they're excellent for a food tray such as that. Let's not knock that over. So I'll be bringing that. So let's just get this into the grind mode. Let me turn off the microphone. What I'll tell you is that I am less than impressed with that. So my speed technique is not going to work. We're going to put this in our 3 horsepower blender to make the tahini, because you can see it's barely broken down the seeds at all. So let's get serious. It's probably a little loud. What do you do? Now, you can do this kind of the speed method too if you were wanting to go very quickly to make your hummus. You just put your can of beans, garbanzo beans, in to your blender and the oil and the seeds, but this is a more traditional route to actually make the tahini. So let's put this in. I'm going to add a little bit more oil. And so while we're doing this, we're going to be putting in our hummus. I like lime juice. Traditionally, lemon juice is used, but we've talked about the virtues of lime. So I'm going to turn this on here for a moment. And then okay, so either of those are working out. So I'm just going to do it the way I've always done it. We're just going to take the sesame seeds and I'm going to put this back into the food processor. We'll just add them with the can of beans and skip the tahini process because it's going to take a little bit too much time. So here we go. And these sesame seeds will break down when we put them with our can of garbanzo beans. So I've got the can opened already, and I'm going to avoid the sharp piece of metal there. It's just the garbanzo beans or chickpeas. You do use the liquid with it. We've already got the oil in. We can put a little bit more olive oil in. We haven't talked so much about salt yet, but let's do that. It's real important for you not to use the regular table salt. It's not good for you. It's very difficult for your body to assimilate that. In fact, it can be kind of toxic. So this is Himalayan pink sea salt. Not sea salt. There is gray sea salt with brine in it, and this one's the Himalayan. So it has trace minerals in it, and that's what makes it pink. So you're going to put a little bit of salt in. So this is how I've always done it before, but I thought, oh, I'll make some tahini. But no, we didn't do that. So salt, olive oil, sesame seeds, a can of garbanzo beans, and some lime juice. So I'm going to just juice the lime rather than peeling it and putting it in there. And you can use a whole lime or a whole lemon. It depends. Again, I just really have grown fond of the taste of the lime in the hummus. So, get that juiced now. We've got that malic acid, which helps us with inflammatory processes and will avoid gout. I've actually had that once. Wasn't a pleasant experience. I was making kidney stones. Mine are always calcium. And I got gout too. It wasn't fun. Uric acid can cause kidney stones besides gout. Okay, so here we go. Let me turn this off. Let that blend longer, but we've got it. So here is our black sesame hummus. And I'm just going to pour that in right into the center, and they'll be like, why is it gray? And then I'll explain to them black sesame seeds and how it's going to help their brain and give them melanin in their substantia nigra so that they have great brains. All right, so there is, I'm not going to make the cheese ball. There's no time for that, but I can do that another day. I'm just going to bring a big chunk of brie, and brie is really good because it has vitamin K2. So there's vitamin K1 that's found in kale and spinach and chard, but it's harder for our bodies to absorb that. And vitamin K1 and K2 are really important for bone health. And so vitamin K2 is found in fermented cheeses like brie and parmesan and Gouda. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but no cheese ball tonight. I am now going to, making sure I'm disconnected here, show you the black rice. I have pictures of it. And so the process for this, so the black rice, as you can see, is very dark. It actually stains my steamer when I use it because the pigments are so strong. Again, it has melanin, going to be great for our brains. So we're going to have a cerebral experience tonight. So I have a traditional recipe that I've modified to make it healthier, and it's green chili rice. And so instead of using brown rice, I use the black rice, and you might have to find that in a health food store, but it has a lot of amazing benefits to it, the least of which is, or the greatest is the melanin. So, and then it's not red peppers, it's mild green chilies, so green chili rice. So I'm going to open that up. This is a massive can. We're not going to use all of that. But I found that if I buy it in the larger can, it's much more economical. So I buy a larger can, and then I spoon about a half a cup into little Ziploc bags, and I freeze them. And then I pull out a little packet when I'm ready to make my green chili rice. So we're just going to spoon in approximately a half a cup. Again, not an exact science. So put that in. Let me tell you how to make the rice. Anytime you're making rice, you need to be aware, particularly brown rice has arsenic, natural arsenic in it. And you want to rinse the rice. So what I do is you take the rice, whether it's brown or the black rice, and you rinse it off, and then you saute it either in butter, or this one I did the red palm oil because of all the amazing antioxidants in that. The butter tends to scorch a little bit, and then you saute it for a couple of minutes. Now that was just about a cup of cheddar cheese, so you're putting the cheddar cheese in. I could also add Parmesan cheese because that's fermented cheese, and it's got some great benefits for our bones. This is sour cream, and I put that in. And I've left it in the rice steamer because it will stay warm as I transport that. Here's my spoon. So I'm going to put the whole container of sour cream in. So sour cream is obviously a fermented dairy product. So it doesn't have as many probiotics, say, as yogurt, but it does have some benefits. I had a friend over once, and I asked him, is there any, I was going to make him dinner, is there any food you don't like? And he said, sour cream. And I was really glad they told me that because I was going to make this, which is one of my absolute favorite dishes. So you just dump that in, it's super easy. So after you've rinsed the rice and sauteed it, you stick it in either a saucepan, if that's how you do rice. I've never been real successful with that, so this rice cooker has been with me a really long time. And so you stir it all up like this, and then your spices are going to be cumin. You could throw some chili pepper in there if you wanted. Again, not an exact science. I love cumin, so I put more in, and then you could put some paprika in too. I recently bought some paprika, and I learned that paprika comes in, like all peppers, it comes from the pepper family, mild and spicy, and apparently the whole pound bag that I got is flaming hot. So this is the mild paprika. We're going to put some of that in. So we've got more antioxidants there, helping with our lipoprotein, helping with the lipid peroxidation. We're neutralizing that. So it's got an interesting color. Usually it's different because I don't use the black rice often, but here it is, and absolutely fantastically delicious. It's one of my family's favorite foods. So My daughter was very excited that I'm bringing that. So I'm going to put these all in the car and go have my celebration. And then I will come back, and on a different day, I'll be doing more explanation of some of the nutrients that are found in these foods that I'm taking tonight. But what I wanted you to see is that on any given day, whatever your event is, whatever's going on in your day, that you can work in food that will heal, and that you can keep your family and your friends healthier and educate them as you go. And the other thing I want to say about that is everybody comes to the willingness to accept changes in their meals and the foods that they eat at their own speed. So you can't push it on them. Jeff likes to say, when I start teaching people about these foods, they run out and tell everybody, and then, oh, you got to get a blender and you got to make these smoothies. And he says, and their friends are standing back and looking like, smoothie you, right? So I've got healthy, delicious foods to take with me tonight and great company. And I appreciate you watching this. And there will be so much more to come. I wanted to not just take you through each food alphabetically with the text, with the book. I wanted to immerse you in the process of let's eat, let's do this. So thank you. I am Phoenix Alexander, food healing instructor and Qigong instructor and general life enthusiast. Thank you.